It's basically like we could literally not be OpTic.
Right. Like in 2 weeks.
Yo, YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy SalvationsElite, and we are back with another video, guys. And today, we're talking about OpTic Gaming. As many of you guys might know, as many of you guys might not know, there's a lot of issues when it comes to OpTic's ownership right now. And we're not talking about Hecz necessarily, but we're talking about Infinite Esports. So, to catch some of you guys up who may not know the whole story. So, a few years back, Infinite Esports bought the majority share to OpTic from Hecz. We don't know exactly how much Hecz sold, but he sold at least 51% of OpTic Gaming to Infinite Esports. And he did that because he wanted to invest in new esports like League of Legends, Overwatch, you know, whatever, CS. He wanted to get more involved with all that stuff. So he sold part of it to Infinite Esports. The issue arises is that Infinite Esports is now apparently looking to sell their share in OpTic Gaming, or potentially that they were approached to sell OpTic Gaming. So Immortals, which is an esports organization, Immortals Esports is an organization that was in League of Legends in the past. They have an Overwatch team, and they, you know, they're involved in a lot of esports overall. So like when 100 Thieves got into League of Legends, that's when Immortals was kicked out of League of Legends, and they want to get back into the sport. So now here comes OpTic Gaming. They have a spot in the NALCS, but at the same time, while this is going on, Infinite Esports as a whole is up for sale, and apparently they're trying to sell it for like 150 million, which would include OpTic. So apparently there's two options here, is that either Infinite sells just OpTic, or Infinite sells their business as a whole. And apparently they're seeking 150 million for their business as a whole, and OpTic's only a part of that business, so maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 million for OpTic. We don't know. That's kind of where we're at right now. So obviously the question is, like, what does this mean for OpTic? What does this mean for Hecz? What does this mean for the Call of Duty team? What does this mean for League of Legends? What does this mean for CSGO? Like, OpTic has a lot of stakes in esports as a whole. What would happen if another esports org bought OpTic? Like, how would that work? What would that look like? And that's the thing right now, is that apparently Immortals is trying to make that happen, and nobody really knows what that would look like if Immortals actually bought OpTic. Again, Hecz isn't the majority owner in the brand anymore. That's Infinite Esports. If they sell that to Immortals, now Immortals is the majority owner of the OpTic brand. And so that's kind of where OpTic fans are pretty terrified right now. The OpTic Gaming subreddit has been filled with like, are we going to lose OpTic? Is OpTic going to go under? What's happening with OpTic? Blah, blah, blah. And Hitch and Maniac talked about it in their most recent Flycast. And Hitch said that Hecz really hasn't told him anything. He'll like give him that look. So here, I'm just going to play the clip right here quickly of Hitch and Maniac talking about it. If you guys don't know who Hitch and Maniac are, they're content creators for OpTic Gaming. And this is them talking about the whole situation.
Are we going to have a job in a couple weeks?
Why don't you explain?
Are we moving to LA?
Wasn't there some ESPN article?
Yeah, some ESPN article. The CWL is looking to franchise, and this is happening, or that's a lot of people are talking about that. So that is definitely got to be one of the talks about buying an OpTic brand. The OpTic brand is our Call of Duty team. So if Immortals gets it, is Immortals just going to make our COD team Immortals? Like, is that how that works? I don't know if that's how that works at all. But also, I've heard that there's two other offers on the table as well, or two other people looking to buy, I don't know. So I have no idea what's happening, but all I know is that we don't know what's happening. We don't know who is buying. We don't know if they're going to drop the content creators, or if they have their own content creators, or if they keep us but drop our production team, which would suck because we like all them.
It's basically like we could literally not be OpTic.
Right. Like in 2 weeks.
What a shame.
I just hope whatever happens,
like,
Hecz steps back in, man. That's what I hope happens.
Yeah.
Every
it's
time
going
I
to be
ask
fucking
him,
annoying.
I'll look at Hecz and I'll be like, so are we good? And he'll go,
yeah.
and like that's the information I get. So whatever he knows, he's keeping up there.
So basically, they don't really know what's happening. They're going off the same information that we're going off of and everybody else is going off of. So again, what would happen with OpTic if Infinite Esports sells their stake in the OpTic brand? And if Immortals buys it for the League of Legends spot, I mean, that would give me huge worries for the future of OpTic Gaming, especially in Call of Duty. And I mean, if you guys are interested in OpTic because of the Call of Duty team, I think regardless, this is really bad news no matter what happens. I mean, Infinite Esports had to have caught whiff of the idea of franchising a while ago, and then they decide out of the blue to go up for sale and trying to sell the OpTic portion. And OpTic's most well known for their Call of Duty team. Their Call of Duty team is what brings the branding and the sponsorships in. It's not their League of Legends team. It's not their Overwatch team. It's the OpTic Call of Duty team, which drives the brand. I mean, if you're Infinite Esports and you know that, and now you know franchising is coming up where you're gonna have to pay at least 25 million. Now, if you guys watched my last video, you know the reports are that these spots are now going for 40, 50, 60 million dollars off the bidding process. For cities like LA, Chicago, you know, those spots are going for pretty high prices now. And that's the issue, is I don't think Infinite Esports wants to be in Call of Duty, or like doesn't want to pay the price to be in Call of Duty. So I don't know, man. I'm legitimately concerned that OpTic might not exist in a few weeks, a few months, a year. Whenever this sale goes through, this could be a huge problem for OpTic. I mean, this is the weird thing about esports, is that the value of OpTic lies within the leagues that they're in and the players that they have and the content creators and the content that they produce. Okay, so if OpTic's value is, a large part of their value is in that League of Legends spot, and obviously we don't know how that works with the ownership of that spot. I'm assuming as the majority owner, Infinite Esports gets to decide what happens with that spot, and then that's kind of how the reporting is going down right now. And so I mean, they also have an Overwatch spot, but the report did say that if Immortals was to buy OpTic, they would not get the Overwatch spot because Overwatch's rules say that one organization cannot own two teams. So that means that Immortals would be willing to buy OpTic for the price of the Overwatch team as well, to then drop the Overwatch team, just buy that League of Legends spot. So apparently that's how valuable that League of Legends spot is that it's valuable enough for them to be okay with paying the price of the Overwatch team for a year to then have the League of Legends spot still. And that's why I think if Immortals sells, there's no way OpTic would be in the Call of Duty World League, which would be really sad and really unfortunate that OpTic wouldn't have any stakes in that sense, and Hecz wouldn't be involved with the Call of Duty World League anymore and things like that. I mean, that's really sad if that's the case, because, you know, I mean, obviously it's OpTic Gaming. They're the history with Call of Duty. They're a big reason for why Call of Duty is what it is, and it's just too bad that that might legitimately be the case. So if Immortals was to buy OpTic, they have three choices to make with OpTic as a whole. Obviously, like I said, they're most interested in that League of Legends spot. More than likely, that means that they would just eat up that League of Legends team, and then that the OpTic League of Legends team would then be the Immortals League of Legends team. And so now OpTic loses that, and then they would disband the Overwatch team after a year. So now that means OpTic would basically just be what? The Call of Duty team, the CSGO team, and the Gears team. Now that's where Immortals' decision lies, is what do you do with the rest of OpTic? You kind of let it be its thing. But like with the Call of Duty team, you have to either invest in the World League or you have to just not invest in the World League. But the thing is, if you don't invest in the World League, that means you're going to lose Scump, you're losing Crim, you're losing Karma, you're losing Dashy, you're losing TJ. So you're losing 5 of the biggest brand drivers for your organization. I mean, when it comes to Karma, Crim, and Scump, like, if they're not going to be on the OpTic Call of Duty roster anymore, are they going to stay in OpTic? How does that work? I mean, is Karma, Crim, or Scump still going to be part of OpTic as a content creator, quote unquote? Would they be Call of Duty players? Who knows? And now suddenly, if you don't have those guys, now it's only the content creators, which is, you know, Hitch, Maniac, Big T, Bows, all the boys, you know, all those guys. You got those guys, and then you have the Gears team, and you have the CSGO team. Is that what Immortals wants OpTic to still be? Can OpTic even survive just being that? Maybe, maybe not, depending on how good the content creators are. Maybe they start investing more money into their content creators and just let OpTic be the esports brand that it could be. Or the other option is maybe Hecz wants to buy back the rest of OpTic as the brand for whatever it is at that point, and let Hecz kind of start over, quote unquote, with OpTic. I mean, that might legitimately be an option, is that Hecz would try to rebuy OpTic Gaming. So basically, Immortals buys the League of Legends team and then sells OpTic back to Hecz for how much money they want to sell it to Hecz for. And then at that point, that's kind of where OpTic sits, is now it's back to square one, but Hecz wouldn't be able to afford a CWL spot, so OpTic wouldn't have a Call of Duty team for at least a year. And then again, you're still stuck in that situation where Scump, Crim, and Karma aren't part of the organization anymore. So can OpTic survive? Is it worth the money to buy it back if you don't have those guys? If you don't have a Call of Duty team? Like, where does that lie? How does that gonna work? And it's like incredibly interesting and something that we haven't seen before in the Call of Duty space, where a brand like this, like with OpTic Gaming, I mean, to say that a year ago or 2 years ago that OpTic could potentially not exist, literally not exist in 2 years would be, I mean, unimaginable. That's a legitimate question depending on how Infinite Esports and Immortals handles these next few weeks or months. The other issue to consider is whether or not Hecz has a non-compete clause with Infinite or with Immortals. Like, if that's the case, like, could Hecz even buy OpTic because of the non-compete clause? Who knows? It's literally a horrible situation for OpTic, and like, man, I couldn't feel worse for like the content creators, Hecz. I mean, if I had to bet right now what would happen, I think Infinite Esports is going to try to sell OpTic to Immortals. Immortals is going to get the League of Legends spot, and then they're not going to go into the World League, and then they're just going to kind of let OpTic be whatever OpTic is at that point, which I don't know what OpTic really is if there's not a Call of Duty team centered around it. If Scump, Karma, and Crim aren't there, and there's no Call of Duty team in the World League anymore, so now OpTic's just a Gears team and a CS team and the content guys, I guess. Unless Hecz can like spin it and like make it work as just a content brand, which maybe he can, it's going to be a lot tougher to do without the Call of Duty team. So I ranted on this for a while. I hope you guys enjoyed the little news segment. We're doing a Learn from the Pros tomorrow, which I'll get that out by tomorrow for sure. And I mean, I just wanted to cover this news because I thought it was so interesting and like so shocking and surprising, and that we need to talk about it. So drop your comments down below what you guys think about OpTic, Infinite, Immortals, Hecz, the content team, the COD team, whatever, like the World League, how that could look without OpTic. There's so many variables here, and I mean, such a massive effect for esports and for Call of Duty as a whole if this is actually what happens. So again, if you guys enjoyed the video, like, comment, favorite, and subscribe. Share the video if you guys really enjoy it. Again, I really do appreciate you guys, all the support and everything. I'm trying to do this long term, and I cannot doubt you guys, so I really do appreciate it. But as always, I'm your boy SalvationsElite, and we'll see you next time. I'm out.